Hey guys, welcome back to another video on my channel. Before we get started on today's video, please subscribe to the channel, like my content, put all your comments and suggestions in the section below. And so we have gone a lot of videos talking about the presidential race, and that will continue a lot more into the near future because there's obviously a lot to analyze here. And we see Trump won 312, 226. Trump will end up winning the popular vote by around 2 points or so. We're just waiting for California to finish counting. They're almost done counting, but California is really slow at counting. It's pretty embarrassing that they take this long. It's been a week since election day. Almost every other state has counted most of the ballots in, but California is super slow for some reason. And so they'll be finishing counting soon, and Trump will end up winning the popular vote by around 2 points, I'd say 1.5 to 2 points. Right now he leads by 2.2%. Trump did end up winning the popular vote though, 75 million votes, which is 1 million so far, more than his 2020 margin. And Kamala Harris right now is at 72 million, and that's around 9 million short of Biden in 2020. Obviously, they're not done counting, but generally, just looking at this with over 95% of the votes already counted, this is a pretty poor performance for her, losing so many votes from Joe Biden. And it's something that the Democrat Party is definitely going to have to talk about. But going to the Senate now, we see here that Republicans did win the Senate as they expected. New York Times still hasn't called the state of Pennsylvania, but other sites like the Washington Post have already called Pennsylvania for McCormick. And I believe DDHQ has also called. No, they haven't. DDHQ has not called Pennsylvania yet for McCormick. But McCormick will win. There is not really much to count. He is up by around 30,000 votes. Casey has not conceded yet, but it is going to be really hard to see Casey holding on to this seat. And that's a pretty big surprise to many people. But I expect, after Trump performed so well in Pennsylvania, winning the state by 2 points, you can see a scenario in which McCormick would be able to win. But going, to the rest of these seats now, Republicans will end up with 53 seats. Democrats will end up with 47, which is my prediction. If you see here, 13 days ago, I predicted my final map for the Senate, 53 for Republicans, 47 for Democrats. The only place I was wrong in is which Rust Belt state will end up flipping. In my video, I said one of the three will end up flipping, and I ended up flipping Wisconsin instead of Pennsylvania. So that's the only part that I did get wrong. Obviously, a couple of these margins are a little off, but like most of them are pretty spot on, including up in the Northeast around here. Maryland was a good hit. Minnesota ended up being a pretty safe margin, safe as I expected. These two states, Nevada and Arizona, were closer than I expected. The Democrats only won by 2 points around here and 2 points in Arizona. I think a little less because New York Times ends up rounding. Yeah, around less than 2 points in both of the states. Almost, actually, Ruben Gallegos actually expanded his margin. So Kerry Lake there would not have been able to win. That's why I even put it in that lean column. Texas and Florida were very strong wins for Republicans. Ted Cruz won by 9 points in Texas. And despite what most people think, and most people, including what I would have thought, Rick Scott actually won by 13 points. So, yeah, this was not competitive, and Ted Cruz was not competitive at all. Going to the other flips that Republicans did make, West Virginia completely expected. And the other two flips were Ohio. Bernie Moreno won by around 4 to 5 points. And in Montana, Sheehy won by 7 points. That's exactly what I had. I had Sheehy winning by around 7 to 8 points, and I had Moreno winning by around 2 to 6 points, around 3 to 5 points if you want to narrow it up a little bit. So what really happened here was generally what I expected. And Republicans, I feel 53 Senate seats was good for them, but I feel like, a lot of Republicans could have wanted 54 or 55, given that Donald Trump was able to win all these swing states. There was a lot of split ticketing this election. There was 4 states that did split their tickets, comparing the presidential to the Senate race. And even Maryland was close. Larry Hogan did come within 9 points, but it's still, out of reach for Republicans. As, many people have said, they should not have put money in Maryland. Looking at Michigan, Rogers lost by only 0.3 percentage points. This is definitely going to go to a recount. I'm not sure if Rogers has conceded or not, but either way, that is a pretty bad loss for him. That would have been pretty heartbreaking if I was the candidate in Michigan. Same thing in Wisconsin. Baldwin ended up winning by 0.9%. So these are two really close races in the Rust Belt that Republicans could have won. Down in Nevada and Arizona, I expected both of these to go to Democrats by lean margins, as I previously said. So these would be pretty huge surprises if they flip towards Republicans. And in the state of Pennsylvania, as I explained in the beginning of the video, one of these three would have flipped. And since this one, Pennsylvania ended up being the most Republican in the presidential race, as you can see here, Trump won it by 2 points. If we actually click it, it wasn't 1 point. They just end up rounding. He won it by 2 points. So that right there could have definitely helped carry McCormick over the top, while his margins of 1.4% and 0.9% in Wisconsin and Michigan were probably not enough to carry these two over the top. But once again, I expect Michigan especially to have a lot of some recounts, since it was only a 0.3 race in the Senate. Going now to the House of Representatives, they are also not done counting. Really slow at counting. California honestly needs to change their system, because basically we're all just waiting for California. However, the House of Representatives has already been called. DDHQ has already called the House for Republicans. They already have 219 seats. Going to the New York Times, they have 214 for them. But we can see here the seats that are either not called yet or most heavily contested. Republicans are probably expected to get around 222 seats, which was my prediction. I predicted Republicans to get 222 seats in the House of Representatives. Obviously, the seats are going to be a little bit off. For example, I had Costa winning, but Costa is actually going to lose. I didn't have Evans winning in Colorado's 8th. So we have this seat over here, which is a flip to Republicans. That's a seat that I did not expect to flip, but that cancels out with this seat here that flips to Democrats. Those two would end up canceling out. So now both parties have a zero net gain. If each party does hold their own, which I do expect, apart from Peltola, Republicans will have around 222 or 223 seats. This state over here by John Duarte is going to win this seat, so Republicans will be at 220 after that. If Republicans win Alaska's at large, they'll be at 221. And there's another seat down here that I really am having trouble finding, so I'm going to click it right here. This seat right here, Michelle Steele's seat, she is probably going to hold, but this is too close to call. Almost all the votes are counted. Most of these other seats have already been called for the Republicans. I do expect Costa to hold. However, this is very close, and we're waiting for harder seat to also be called. So once all those are called, we'll probably end up with a House map around 222 for Republicans and around 213, I believe, for Democrats, or 212 if I'm doing my math correctly. So a slim majority for the Republicans, but one that we expected. Some seats that Republicans did flip, both of the seats in Pennsylvania. I projected Republicans to flip one. They actually were able to flip both. One of them in Michigan, which I projected as well. This seat over here I did get wrong. Don Davis did actually hold on by 2 points, so that was a seat that I got wrong right there. Most of the other seats, however, I did get right. Another seat that I did get wrong was this seat right here. I did think Joe Kent was going to win by a narrow amount, of course, but Perez ended up holding on by a very, very small amount. These are all extremely close races. The ones that either were close in my prediction or were close in the end result. New York had a couple flips back to Democrats, as I expected. I did expect Lawler to hold on, which he did. If we can see a little bit of these seats down here, Molinaro ended up going down. And then Esposito also ended up going down, as I would have predicted. Republicans did hold their own in the Long Island districts, and that's really because Donald Trump performed extremely well in the state of New York. He came within 12 points. We can go to the shift map right here. You could really see a lot of gains for Donald Trump up in the Northeast. I mean, he gained everywhere. He really gained everywhere. Ignore California because the votes are not in, so they cannot show. So here we have the swings from the Washington Post from 2020 to 2024. You could compare it to the New York Times one. They look pretty similar, but obviously they're built differently because it's a different website. But we can see here they actually do show us the swings from California, even though the votes are not completely in. So a county like Los Angeles County swung 11 points Republican, like over here in Miami-Dade, 19 points Republican. They kind of give us a little bit of a hint to some of these areas for us to point out. Like Atlanta suburbs, she did improve. Trump improved vastly on the Texas border. All of Florida, not just Miami-Dade, all of Florida Trump improved on. And probably the biggest change from 2016, 2020, 2024 were these swings around New York City. Like, let's look at some of these counties right here. Look at Bronx County, 22 points more Republican. New York, 9 points more Republican. Kings County, 12 points more Republican. Queen, 21. Nassau County, 14. Suffolk, 11. And in some counties in New Jersey, 13, 20, 11, 14. So those swings up in the Northeast, and that does include states like Connecticut and Rhode Island and Massachusetts that definitely all contributed to Republicans performing well all across the board. But the conclusion I really want to make with comparing the House and the Senate to Trump's performance is that Trump performed a lot better than down ballot Republicans. Trump did outperform his Republican friends down ballot. Like, for example, in a lot of these Rust Belt states and Sun Belt states, Trump actually did really well. Like, Trump won the state of Arizona by around 6 points, but Kari Lake still lost by 2 points. So there was a lot of split ticket voting in the state of Arizona. Same thing in Nevada, where Jackie Rosen won by almost 2 points and Trump won by around over 3 points. So some big ticket splitting in Arizona and Nevada. Meanwhile, in the Rust Belt, there still was a little bit of ticket splitting, especially in Ohio, but it wasn't as big. It wasn't as big as in Arizona and Nevada. Another ticket splitting that did favor Republicans, and probably the only one, was the state of Maryland, where Trump lost it by around 20, the high 20s. But Hogan only lost it by 9. But either way, this was not a seat that Republicans were going to win. Despite, all this criticism that I do give on the Republicans, could have done this, could have done that. They did actually get a trifecta. Republicans do have a trifecta now. So Donald Trump would probably be able to do a lot of the things that he wants to do. A lot of the things that he talked about in his campaign. It'll be a lot easier for him to accomplish those things now, especially like on the border, foreign policy, economy, all the things that he promised to the people. And he did have the majority of votes, so it's not like he lost a popular vote. So most people are on board with that. And since he does have the House and the Senate and the Supreme Court, he will be able to execute what he wants to execute. And the real question going into the midterms, which I will definitely cover, but we're a long way away from that. The real question, the midterms, is will Trump be able to hold his own in the House of Representatives? Will Republicans be able to hold their majority? And it's really going to be based upon Trump's performance. Usually, no matter what, the incumbent party will lose House seats. The Senate's a different story, so we'll talk about that when the time comes. But usually, the incumbent party does lose House seats, so we'll just have to see. Right now, it's really hard to say, but Republicans definitely need to perform well in the House to be able to keep it, especially with such a slim majority. They're going to end up with probably 222, so that is a very, very slim majority. But that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, like my content, put all your comments in the section below, and I'll check you guys out in the next one.